Welcome viewers to another interview session on this channel, Literary Pleasures. Today, we'll be discussing with the author Michael Scharen on his novel, Soul is Not Lost, a Space Opera. On behalf of myself and the viewers of this video, I would like to say a big welcome to Michael Scharen.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yeah.
I like what you're doing with this channel.
Yeah. Now, before we start off the interview, I'd like to give a brief profile of author Michael James Scharen. He's a scientist, a physicist, and he has several publications to his name. He is an expert in the field of ceramic high-temperature superconductor materials, and he had the honor to work with a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, J. Robert Schrieffer. That's quite an honor, Mr. Scharen.
Thank you.
He has lots of interests which include writing, history, and science and technology. Also, he is involved in bookbinding, Austrian economics, volunteerism, and algorithm. He has lots of things he has been engaged in, and if you visit his website, you could see all his projects. So, Michael Scharen, it's an honor to have you here today. I'm impressed looking at your profile. Okay, now in this video we have a giveaway. There will be a giveaway with this interview, so I'll encourage everyone to watch the interview to the end to learn how you can be a part of the giveaway. Now let me give you a summary of the novel before we start the interview. Soul is Not Lost, a Space Opera. The main character in the novel is named Trevor Van Leeuwan. He's the CEO of the Van Leeuwan Corp or VLC Corp. And his company has been successful in conquering outer space. In fact, they conquer a planet and they make it habitable for humans. But there are dark political forces on Earth who want to bring him down and destroy his company. VLC Corp has been successful in harnessing technology to occupy other planets and systems in outer space in the novel, like Soul. And influential politicians whom Trevor, the CEO, distrusts will do anything to destroy or control his company. Trevor has to understand how to forestall the eventual clash between free enterprise and corrupt, exploitative politicians who will do anything to be a part of the action. Now let's come to the story, Mr. Scharen. Trevor, the main character, if you read from the beginning chapters, you see that he was raving and ranting about taxes and government control. Was the novel meant to be a diatribe against the way society is organized on Earth?
Well, I guess you could say that, but what I go into in more depth in the book is that the secret colony that he's from, in that colony, they don't have a government. They don't have a government on the Mars frontier. There's a government enclave and a private enclave where they have their own justice, security, all of those things. They do it without a government. So the clash is basically between these two cultures. After 100 years on the planet Magellan, where Trevor is from, he still comes back to the Sol system. Of course, Sol is the name of our star here. And he tries to help the people on Mars and the moon and wherever the boot of government is coming down too hard. So basically that's the flow of the book. And there's a lot of interesting ideas I explore along the way. So it's not particularly against his company, but it's against him and people that think like him out of the box, as it were.
Okay. And you see, they are trying to recreate the lives of several people, helping them to explore other planets, as you say. And these persons, you call them adventurers in the novel. Now, let me give a quote of what they do with adventurers. Let me just quote it from the novel. It says, about the adventurers, these were adventurers who loved the fact that they could build new lives as they saw fit, without the suffocating petty encumbrances of society. Now, these adventurers that explore these planets with the aid of the VLC Corp, could you give us a description of a typical adventurer? Like what age, what status, what occupation would a typical adventurer fall into?
Well, just briefly before I answer that question, the caveat is they don't do just anything that they please. It's not, they have a system of rules and they live by what we call the non-aggression principle, which is essentially just the golden rule, right?
Yeah.
One of the characters that comes out in the town hall meeting in the book, the Mars Frontier Council, goes by the name of McGregor. McGregor is an older prospector. He's built his own self-contained living unit, laboratory, everything on wheels. And he drives out over the surface of Mars and he does prospecting for himself and for other clients. But he's basically I model him after the kind of the grizzled old mountain men of the American West, sort of a loner, but very experienced, very savvy. The kind my book, in several places in other books also that I've written, I go back to the pioneer days of the American West or the Australian outback, and this is the way I picture that Mars colonization will start. You'll have people that are very independent-minded, and they'll go there and they will carve out a path, a trail, blaze a trail for the others.
Okay. So they are trailblazers in a way.
Right. Someone has to go there and figure out, like the pioneers did, how to live off the land, how to use the resources to make it habitable for human beings. And Mars, of course, would be a very challenging place to do that,
Yeah.
as well as the moon.
Now, talking about making use of the resources of outer space, you give us an impression that these corporations were far ahead of government agencies in doing this, that the government cannot catch up with them, even in their pace of technology. They have some secret technology no one knows about, which they use. Now, but in reality, we see that the government agencies like NASA, the Chinese National Space Administration, the European Space Administration, and others, they are far ahead of commercial enterprises in space exploration. When do you think the commercial world will catch up with the government in space?
I think we're seeing it right now with SpaceX. We're seeing that the private companies will soon rapidly outpace any government agency. If you look at, say, for example, NASA said to do what SpaceX is doing, to have a reusable launch vehicle, it would take $32 billion and 10 years. SpaceX did it in less than $3 billion in 7 years. And there's also a new company that's going to build a space station, a private space station, that will rival the International Space Station. And SpaceX is taking up their first 4 astronauts to the ISS this year, I think. And there are many, many companies that have come out since. I think SpaceX and others like them have sparked a new rush, basically. So that's the way I'm looking at it. I think that the government agencies, except for, I like NASA, except for, I think the Jet Propulsion Lab is doing fantastic work. But NASA, we have a NASA channel in the United States, right? And they're constantly going back to Apollo and Gemini, and they barely have touched anything new in the last 20 years. Okay. I was watching another program. I like to watch these programs, actually. I like on C-SPAN, where the author talks about his book and people ask questions. And one author was writing a book about private companies in space. And a man stood up in the audience and he said, I worked for NASA in the late 1990s when people there were actively talking about how to stop the private companies. So you can take that however you like, but if you really start looking into things, you'll see that, yeah, things are changing pretty quickly.
Okay. So do you want to tell us that space is a new frontier, just like the Europeans discovered America, that the new frontier is space?
I do believe space is a new frontier, although it's going to be significantly harder to do than going to another continent. Maybe even the oceans will be taken advantage of before space will. I don't know. But you have to. The point is, you have to make it pay, right? And how do you? It has. You have to be self-sustaining, at least. I think people will go to Mars or to other places just to get away from the Earth. I do. I think that's why a lot of pioneers left, the so-called society, because they wanted to act more in a more free way, not to exploit things, but just to be left alone.
Okay.
There are two kinds of people in the world: people that want to be left alone and people that won't leave them alone.
Talking about leaving them alone, let's come to the VLC Corp in Soul is Not Lost. You see, the politicians are trying to get into the company. They want to understand how the company works. And I see a similarity in tech giants today like Amazon, Google, and Facebook. Politicians want to get a piece of the pie of these companies, but these companies are keeping their operations secret. Let's say not too secret, because they have been called before Congress to answer for some of their actions, but they are not too transparent. It's like something of a dystopian situation. So, is VLC Corporation similar to any tech giant today or any multinational company one can imagine?
I would say no. It's not explained in the book, but my take on this situation is these companies cannot operate the way they do without the aid of a government. I'll tell you a quick story. The first company I worked for, it was a startup company in the superconductor business where there was no business at all. We're still doing research. So we were getting government grants, and someone told the officers of the company that what they needed to do was set up an office in Washington, D.C. to basically stay there and be constantly there begging for money. And our competition did so. They did just that. But we won out. So you see it also, I don't know about where you live, but there's a revolving door in the United States where an executive goes to say a drug company, and then he goes to the government and he regulates the same drug company, and it goes back and forth. It's that tight bond between government, which is the ultimate monopoly, the monopoly of force, right, with their cronies, as I call them. And that is how a lot of them, I think, maintain that kind of grip. I think, for example, you talk about Facebook and Twitter and those companies, they're acting like publishers when they were supposed to be just a platform. And I know that you're concerned, based upon the books I've seen you review, 1984, Fahrenheit 451. That is really scary to me, that those companies have that much power over what people say. So to get back to your question, I don't see the Van Leeuwan Corporation and Haruta Metals and those companies. They are in an absolutely free competition with each other. But I understand your concern.
Okay, thank you very much. So what made you write this dystopian story?
Well, I don't know if I would go as far to say it's a dystopian story. It can be construed depending upon which side you're on.
Because it talks about corruption in the government, the failures of society.
Yeah, I'm sorry. When you say dystopian, what comes into my head is Mad Max, or where the planet's just been devastated by a disease or something like that. This isn't like that, but it is. I am trying to bring up topics that I believe should be discussed a little bit more openly than we are allowed to currently. So to see really what government is, as I say, as a monopoly of force, which is so easily abused. When you give someone that much power, they say that absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
Yeah.
And you have the bureaucratic class who's there forever. The politicians come and go, but the bureaucrats are the ones that are running everything. So yeah, you could call it, I guess in some eyes it's dystopian, but I'm just basically trying to use it as a platform to discuss new ideas, but also in a fun way, where you try to make interesting characters and make the plot, move. I don't know what your opinion was, but that was my thought in writing it.
Yeah, and I read through the novel. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed your characterization. It was very nice. Now let's come to the giveaway section. Author Michael Scharen says he's giving 100 free ebooks of his novel Soul is Not Lost. So if you would like to have a copy, you can write him. I will put his email address in the video description. You can write him or go to his website and look through his books and ask him to give you a copy to read. But you need to quote this video that you saw this video on the YouTube channel Literary Pleasures before he will accede to your request. Now, author Michael Scharen, do you have any last words for our viewers? Something you feel they need to know about the novel, or as an encouragement to our readers and other authors?
Yes, I would encourage people to read the book with an open mind. Use basic Socratic method, as I like to say. Ask questions. There's a good quote that I heard recently. Would you rather have questions that cannot be answers, or answers that cannot be questioned? So I would say I would like to encourage independent authors and readers not to go. You won't always find interesting books at Amazon. There are other people out there like myself who does not sell on Amazon because they are the 800-pound gorilla, as they say. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a wide world of authors and ideas out there, and your channel is making that clear. And I really appreciate Literary Pleasures and others who do this sort of thing. And I encourage everyone to subscribe to this channel and be on the lookout for new thoughts, new ideas, and interesting people to talk to.
I appreciate your kind words, Mr. Scharen. So, our viewers, you've heard from the author of Soul is Not Lost, author Michael Scharen. You can get his book from him, and if you like to pay for it, you can find the link to the pay channel on the video description. So, before we end this discussion, I'd like to say a big thank you to Mr. Michael Scharen. Thank you for being part of this discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
And for viewers, like, comment, and subscribe to this channel, because more interviews will be coming up in the days that are forthcoming. So thank you very much.